When I was 15 years old, I got to join 25 other 15 and 16-year-olds in something called driver's ed. Now, some of you are older than me. You didn't have to do driver's ed, and to be honest, you are lucky. I'm jealous of you because driver's ed was awful. For 6 months, I had to find myself every week jammed into a small classroom with a grumpy old guy who yelled at us about how we were going to be bad drivers if we didn't listen to him. We had to read books on driver's ed, take tests on what we read. We had to watch really boring videos about how to swerve away from animals. It was painful. On top of that, we got to do drive time. A couple times a month, we got into the car with a driving instructor who would coach us on our driving skills. We had a chance to put into practice what we were learning. And so we got to do highway driving, city driving. We got to practice parking the car. We even got to do farm driving. I can remember one of my drives, I got partnered up with a girl from our class who had a huge crush on. She was gorgeous, and I was head over heels for her. And I was so nervous about driving because I wanted to impress her. I wanted her to think that I was the best driver ever, except I did the complete opposite. I almost crashed the driver's ed car. In fact, my driver's ed instructor had to grab the wheel, pull our car over to the side of the road, and he looked me in the eyes. I remember him giving me some coaching advice right then and there. He said, "Your eyes need to be focused on what's in front of you, not the rear view mirror." Driver's ed was made up of 3 components. There was the classroom component, the hands-on experience component, and the driving coaching component. It was through these 3 components that government and other really smart people thought that 15-year-olds would get enough experience and training so that they could be qualified to get behind the wheel of a car when they turned 16. Now, I love that picture of driver's ed when it comes to leadership development. In our last time together, we talked about who we want to bring into the process of developing leaders and what we want to teach them, the head, heart, hands aspects. This week, we want to look at the 3 components of developing a leader. Where does this leadership development take place? And we want to focus on the 3 components of classroom, hands-on experience, and coaching. So our classroom time, we're going to call it cohort time. A cohort is a small group of people who get together where everyone is focused on the same thing that's being developed. And so we want to get a cohort that comes together for a couple hours. And each time you're together, there's going to be a topic that you're going to discuss during your time together. Typically, I give out homework so that people do some reading. They either watch a podcast or listen to a podcast. They do some questions, and it's through these questions and readings and learning that gives them a foundation for a great group discussion. The topics are connected to the head, heart, and hands. For instance, maybe if you're saying we want to grow in our practice of confessing sin, you would assign Bible reading, focus on confession of sin. Some questions along with the Bible reading. Maybe there's a podcast that walks through the spiritual discipline of confession of sin that you want your participants to learn about. Then as you gather together, you'd have a great discussion on why confession of sin is important for a leader's life. Depending upon your topic, you might provide case studies or situations you want participants to talk their way through as they're together in a cohort. Cohorts are also great times to grow as communities. They're times where you get to share, or where people get to share, who they are and what they're about. This is a key thing that I have done in every cohort that I have led. In every cohort, there's an opportunity for each participant to share their story. They get to share a bit about their upbringing, their dreams, their fears, their current realities, their hopes and dreams. This allows the group to not only get to know each other, but it also opens the door for deeper relationship between each person in the group. So, for you as leaders, as you think about the component of a cohort, as you think about developing a time where leaders can get together and grow together, there's some things you need to think through. You need to think through, what do you want your cohort to focus on? Is it going to be focused on relationships or more classroom lecture style? Is it going to be focused on group discussion or personal reflection? How are you going to make those components fit into your cohort? Another thing you need to think through is, what are some of the goals of your cohort? What do you want future leaders to leave a cohort understanding? So, the first component is a cohort component. Second component is hands-on leadership. I love hands-on leadership when it comes to developing leaders. In fact, I always require someone who's a part of our leadership development process to be involved in serving or help leading a ministry in our church. See, I want our leadership development process to follow the 90-10 rule. 90% of our development process is hands-on learning, and 10% is classroom learning. Now, don't get hung up on the percentage, all right? Don't be thinking through how can we make this percentage work, but focus more on the underlying principle that some of our best development happens in leaders' lives as they are practicing what they're learning and through on-the-job experience. Depending on how your church is structured or how large it is, this process of getting future leaders into a place of hands-on experience might be a little more difficult than other situations. And so you need to spend some time as leaders thinking through how this will happen. A good example of this would be small groups. If you're trying to develop small group leaders, you're going to have a conversation with your current small group leaders explaining what you're trying to do and to help them create space for these potential small group leaders to lead the small group from time to time. This will give them some hands-on experience. It will allow them to lead the small group discussion time. It will allow them to prepare for the small group discussion time. It will allow for them to have difficult conversations with people in the small group potentially. But all this takes some prep with your current small group leaders. Someone once said that leadership is learning in the doing and by reflecting on the doing. So as we're equipping through the focusing of the head, heart, and hands, we must provide places for them being future leaders, to put into practice what they're learning. And here's the thing, as they lead, they're going to fail, they're going to make mistakes, they're going to struggle, and all those situations are opportunities for you to provide deeper teaching, training, and development. And now this brings us to one of the more important aspects of leadership development, and that is one-on-one coaching. One-on-one coaching goes hand in hand with the hands-on learning component. We, as leaders, must provide one-on-one coaching to our potential leaders. Why is this important? Because without it, they're never going to learn how to grow. Think about it this way. When my kids were learning how to swim, I didn't grab them, throw them in the deep end of the pool, and say, all right, you guys, as you're struggling to keep your head above water, try harder, move your arms, kick your legs. Eventually you'll figure out, I'm going to go grab a Coke and sit in the lobby. No. I got in the water with them. I watched them. I helped them. I held them up in their tummies as they kicked their legs and moved their hands and arms in the water. I gave them pointers along the way, and I cheered them on. For us as leaders, as we're developing future leaders, we have to get into the water with them. All right? We have to walk alongside of them. And this is what one-on-one coaching provides. It provides us an opportunity to walk alongside our future leaders, to provide ongoing feedback as they try to put into practice what they're learning. Through one-on-one coaching, we can provide the care that our future leaders need. We can provide coaching when it comes to their spiritual lives. We can encourage them to grow deeper, not just in their skills, but with Jesus. It's through one-on-one coaching that God can use us to help shape a person's character. Remember, this process is meant to be relational. It's through this process of coaching we get to know each other. We get to disciple one another. We can encourage and care our potential leaders in deep and meaningful ways. So, the components: cohort, on the hands, leadership training, and coaching. It's through these three components of development that we create the opportunity for a holistic leadership development process. Now, your task as a team is to look at each of these three components and to work through how each component can help develop the head, the heart, and the hands of each potential leader you have in your development process.